We are here at San Japan 2010 with Chris Ayres.
Howdy, howdy.
Chris, I just talked to your brother Greg.
I saw.
Did you agree pretty much with what he said about the direction the industry's going?
I only came in for the end, but my brother and I stand shoulder to shoulder and side by side on pretty much everything. I don't know if he mentioned, I'm very good friends with Shinichi Watanabe, Nabashin, who did Excel Saga, Puni Puni Poemi, Narama Daikon Brothers Wallflower, and
I was talking with Josh Greeley about that. You know, he said that like some of the cultural changes that happened, like in the scripts, Nabashin approved.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And I can talk a little more about that in a second. But
sure.
But Nabashin, when he heard that my brother did a panel on the effects of illegal piracy and downloading and things like that, when he heard that my brother did a panel on this, he turned to me and begged to be allowed to speak to an American audience from the Japanese perspective, and that's available online. I believe you can still see that at activeanime.com.
Active Anime? Okay.
Active Anime, yes. It is my favorite anime news service, run by a very dear friend. I'm actually he and I have become so close. I am the godfather of his son. So
that is close.
Hi, Rommel.
So this video is available online.
It's actually in clips.
It's in clips.
Yeah, and there are several places that you can see it, but it's Shinichi Watanabe talking about how rough it is. And he was the first Japanese guest to come out and really sit down with an American audience and talk. It was very funny because he didn't understand the concept of AMVs. He couldn't understand because that's not something in Japanese culture. That's something that's very American, and he couldn't. And he was finally like, well, isn't that theft of two things? Of the animation and the music, and everybody was like, "Ooh, good job, Nabashin." So he is a funny man. If you like his shows, and you ever get a chance to meet Nabashin, hanging out with him in real life is as crazy and off the wall and insane as his shows are. He is I count him among my friends. He's such a dear man. So that was something that was very exciting when I got to meet him, because I've been a fan of his work for years. When I got to meet him, not only that, but when he started considering me a friend, and we email each other all the time, and of course we have to go through a translator because I don't speak Japanese and he speaks very little English. His English is better than my Japanese, though, I will say that.
But it's great that you can, go past the language barrier.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he and I both are very physical people, so when we don't have a translator, we're trying to do mime and motion out what we're trying to say, and we'll usually do that at a con, and the attendees are going, and they look at us like a dog being shown a card trick. So
explain to me, it's our special sign language.
It's special. It's Nabashin talk.
So what I was trying to talk about a little bit more before, a lot of people sometimes say, like, they change things during the dubbing process, the localization.
Yes.
And the reason is mostly because when you're trying to take a joke that might be really, niche even in Japan itself, and bring it over to an American audience, specifically American audience, and they don't have that background in Japanese pop culture.
Well, I agree with you. The more important thing, and sorry, I've got to cross my legs. It's just easier for me to sit this way. All of a sudden I felt like I was sitting looking like the Elephant Man.
Yeah, I've seen it before. My younger brother says like that too.
I do. I'm 45 years old and still sit like a third grader. The more important thing to me as an ADR director is, and this is something that I take very seriously, probably to me one of the two most important things in my job, is I am the caretaker of another creator's creation. I'm given the responsibility of being the caretaker of their story and their characters for an American audience. That being said, the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is this creator's intent? That more so than any translation, more so than any verbiage or whatnot, that has to be your bottom line. What did this creator want the audience to feel? What did he want to impart to an audience? That is the vital question you ask yourself every time you sit down to direct, in my opinion. And if you're not asking that question, then you're an idiot. Because then you run the risk of not honoring that person's creative child, as it were. So with Nabashin, Nabashin wants to make you laugh. I'll talk about him. I've dealt with other creators' shows. Nabashin wants to make you laugh. Bottom line. And I knew that as long as I had the audience laughing until the third disc, Nabashin does something very interesting. He will make you laugh till you cry. And then the fourth disc, he will turn it around and rip your heartstrings out until you're nearly... I mean, I will tell you what, the last volume of Narama Daikon Brothers, there were 3 different times when we were recording that I was crying. Stuff was breaking my heart, and then you'd turn around and you'd be laughing again. He's a genius creator. So why would I mess with his story? Why would I mess with his characters? What I told my writer going into the process... one person from the studio who's not real familiar with Nabashin said, "Oh yeah, it's Nabashin, you can do whatever you want with it." And I pulled the writer aside and I said, "No, you don't." I said, "Nabashin is a master storyteller." I said, "You keep his story, moment for moment. You keep his characters. You do not change them. But if you have a joke that 10 people that understand Japanese culture inside and out, they're the only people that will get this. Out of every 100 viewers, let's say, you have, I'll go even smaller. Let's say you have a joke that 5 people will get. And you can take that joke and expand it to where 95 out of 100 will be laughing. You tell me which is serving the creator's vision of that show better.
Probably the larger scale.
The larger audience. Right. So when we first premiered the show, Nabashin was in the United States. He actually came to the screening. And he and I did a director-to-director interview afterwards, and we took questions from the audience. And you want to talk about being nervous. He had not gotten to see my version of the show, and now he's sitting in a theater, in a movie theater, with an audience watching, and I'm sitting like right behind him going, "Oh, I hope he likes it." 'Cause I'm a huge fan. We had not really gotten to know each other then. And of course, during the interview, there was a hater. He's like, "Well, Mr. Nabashin, what did you think about them changing your, no. And it was explained to him through our translator what was said. And Nabashin said, "When I heard the audience here not laughing, but screaming, they were laughing so hard, I knew the studio had found the right director." Okay, you don't get a much higher compliment from a creator than that. And he actually, at Anime Detour, he says he wishes he could find a project that he and I could collaborate on and work together. And I'm like, oh, yes, let's do it. Yeah, huge honor. And I love that man dearly. So, but yeah, that's kind of has always been my take on working as a director on any show I'm given. I take that responsibility, and I consider it a responsibility very, very seriously. What I said, that is one of the 2 biggest things. Your second biggest thing is casting. You have to get the right cast. If you get the right cast, your job as a director is done. You just get to sit back and really enjoy the process. If you've got the wrong person in the wrong role, it can be miserable.
By wrong person, or could you elaborate?
Well, you've just got an actor that comes in like gangbusters at the audition. And I've not had that happen. I've been told that by other directors. I've had that happen for stage. I've had an actress or an actor come in that I think, oh, they're perfect. And I get into rehearsals and they just don't get it. And it's very much like anime, because for theater you're rehearsing for about 5 or 6 weeks. And you're spending 5 or 6 weeks, just pulling teeth trying to get the performance to work. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I've been very lucky. I learned my lesson with casting very early on as a stage director, and I'm very careful whatever I'm working on and how I cast it. I've got a very unique casting process that a lot of directors don't do. I don't know who's cast until my engineer hands me the cast list. I sit in the back of the room. After we've done all the auditions, we've recorded everybody. I sit in the back of the room. I have what I call the casting couch, which is not what you think. I sit in the back of the room, and I say, okay, let's start with the lead. And my engineer plays me every single part, and I will audition everybody I can for every role. They play me every person. And usually within 5 seconds of the clip starting, I'm like, no, keep that one, no, yes, no, yes. What I'm doing is seeing whose voice works with the character design. Whose voice looks right coming out of that character's mouth, or whose voice sounds right, I should say. And I do that for every major character in the show. But I always have actors read scenes that are scenes with other characters. I always try to get the leads reading together, romantic couples, hero and villain reading together. Because then what I do is, let's say I've narrowed it down out of like 40 people down to like 5 choices. And I'm going to look at the hero and the villain. I'm like, okay, give me the first guy from the hero and the last guy from the villain. Ooh, no, they don't sound good together. Change that to the third villain. It's better. Give me the second hero. And I will start mixing and matching until the chemistry. I've got 5 people who could feasibly do this role. Then it's a matter of seeing where the chemistry between the characters is. Once you've got that, once you've got not only the right voice for the character design, but you've got the right chemistry between the characters, your job's done. It's a matter then it's a matter of sheer technicality of going, okay, does that fit? No, move that back 5 frames. Can you give me a longer pause? Then it's sheer technical, and you of course working with each actor on the acting. But if you got the right person, most actors working right now in the industry are so good, they can practically read your mind. So it's a fun process, and I'm very passionate about directing. Obviously, I love it dearly.
Now, most of the recordings with the voice actors, they're not actually in a room all together. They're in a booth by themselves. They have no visual cues to really go off of.
No, we have the animation.
You have the animation.
You're thinking about prelay, and that is where you're doing something that has yet to be animated. The only thing we've done like that I've been a part of at like Seraphim Digital was Halo Legends. That was prelay, and so we went in and we did the voices. And then they had videotape, they had video cameras of our face so that they could animate to our mouth movements. Even then, we had to come back in and do pickups because there was one point that one of my characters, his flaps were just going crazy. Of course, I was the elite commander, so the flaps were ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And what I was saying was very, very slow. So they were like, oh, that just doesn't look right. We need to pick up the pace on that. So we added a few words and changed it so that it looked better with that tap, tap. I keep doing that. That's the mouth. It's not me having some sort of weird hand thing. But yeah, you're thinking about prelay. We actually work to existing animation, and you have to fit everything that's said. You have to fit into the movement of the mouths, including when they stop talking for a moment and pause like that. And you've got to make it sound natural. You've got to make it sound like it's not always easy, and it's quite often very tedious. Somebody will come in. We'll get a visitor to the studio who gets to come in and, occasionally that will come in and sit and watch. And after about 20 minutes, they're like, "Really? Wow!" It's actually very. You think it would be a lot of fun to go watch it, and it is some days. Some days it's very funny. But even with Daikon Brothers, all the singing. Those huge ensemble chorus pieces where you've got like 15 people singing, every one of those people sang one at a time. And then my engineer would sync them up and make sure that they were, right on top of each other and sounding like a good musical theater ensemble.
So do you guys ever try to like, I don't want to say like redraw, but rather re-edit the lips so that they do match?
No,
none of that
we're not allowed to do that. We usually don't do that. The only time stuff like the physical changes of animation, I know some companies will do that for signage to make it legible to an American audience. But I don't know that anything we've done at ADV or Amusement Park Media or even Seraphim Digital has really done that. That's really technically that's messing with somebody else's work. So you do want to be able to put the logo up, something like that, but not really. It's more, and thank goodness for the digital age, because Pro Tools. I told my engineer one time, I said, wow, this Pro Tools rig can do everything but paint my house. He goes, oh, no, there's a button for that. It really, you can compress a sound to make it shorter. It's like, I love that read, but it's just a fraction of a second too long. And the engineer goes, squish, and it fits. And so you're able to have a lot more latitude with keeping takes that you really like the acting on. I think that's where dubs have come along so far in terms of performances in the actual acting. So
So you've been working in this industry for a while, so you've seen like the
7 years.
Right. So you've seen sort of a transformation. Has things gotten the technology for recording? Has that really increased over the years?
The technology had pretty much hit the Pro Tools and things like that were pretty much already in place when I was there. It's just a matter of, the Pro Tools upgrades, all of a sudden you have a few more bells and whistles and a few more extra things you can do.
But still pretty much recorded the exact same process?
Yes, not the way it was when ADV started. That was, it's still digital, but it was done to tape and you'd have to rewind the tape and that was a nightmare, I've been told. Pretty much everything has worked the same way. I tend to like to push boundaries on technology. I will, especially a show like Magicano, we have characters that would just get ranting and raving and streaming, and I would actually add extra words to their this half a page long rant. That we're going to make it way longer than the mouth drop, but the mouth drop would get going so fast it was a blur. And I would actually make it too long. And then I would turn to my engineer and I'd say, compress it down to fit. Because then all of a sudden what happens is that starts speeding up and getting faster, and you're still hearing words, but they're coming out faster than any human being could ever say. For comic effect. I one time had an engineer that was not from the United States. English was his second language, and American humor was not his forte. And I was having to do this, and he goes, but that doesn't sound real. I'm like, we're dealing with teenage witches. It's not. There was another point when this spell escaped from a book. They had done this incantation into a book, and it's for Magicano. And when they finally managed to do the spell to trap all the words back in the book so stuff doesn't go crazy, I took the exact same incantation and had it played backwards. We didn't have to re-record it. We just took the words that were used. We actually rearranged the words and then played that entire file backwards. So technically what is being said when it goes in reverse into the book is a reverse of what is being said. Those are the kind of things you can play with. When we did The Wallflower, there's a wonderful moment where Sanako, played by Hannah Alcorn, gets possessed by the ghost of a pirate king. And, Hannah Alcorn does a phenomenal Irish accent, so we had her do her pirate. And, Hannah's got a voice up here, so everything was right in here. And we were going to have, an adult male actor, come in and do all of that. The whole Jeffrey Rush character from Pirates of the Caribbean. And we were joking around, and the engineer said, hey, let's try this. And he took Hannah's sound file and pitched it all the way down. All the way down, so it's like my voice. All of a sudden, everything was coming out like this.
That's pretty cool.
And we all went, we can get an exact sync that way. So Hannah did all of her, because there were times when she and the Pirate King had to talk that had to be the same words at the same time. Mm-hmm. Hannah, the little tiny Sanako with a really high voice, is also the voice of the Pirate King in that episode. It was so cool, and I love playing with that technology. There are some directors that are a little afraid of it, and I'm like, let's, again, I'm going for what, that was another Nabashin show, so I knew I could really push the envelope. So another question. I'm sorry, I tend to babble a lot.
So you also work in the video game dubbing industry?
I've done a little bit. I've done a little bit so far. I play Wagram in the Square Enix video game, The Last Remnant. As usual, a villain. I've just recently done a few video games because I'm now that I can talk about it, I'm the voice of Frieza in Dragon Ball Z Kai. And they've got several video games, and I'm now doing voices for when Frieza appears in video games and things like that.
That's the new Dragon Ball.
That's the new Dragon Ball, yes.
Is it a remastered? Is it a redrawn? How exactly
it's not completely redrawn. It follows. Sorry, I'm going to shift in my position. It follows the manga a lot closer. It no longer has any of the filler.
Like Goku and Piccolo going to get their driver's
staring
license.
at each other for 2 episodes before we fight, and then a fight takes 12 episodes. None of that. It follows the manga a lot closer. There's also a lot of filler episodes and storylines that go all over the place. Do you know why there's so much filler on Dragon Ball? I just recently found this out.
Was this also because they were doing the manga at the same time,
and
they had to stretch it out?
It had gotten ahead of the manga.
Right.
And so they were having to fill to keep up with the manga for the story. So what they've done is they've cut out all of that excess back to the manga story. So it's going to be a much tighter show. We're having a ball. The script for my character is, I'm just thrilled with it. I'm thrilled with the writing. It plays to a lot of my strengths as an actor, not just as a voice actor, but as an actor. The writer knows that I'm classically trained. I love doing Shakespeare. I love chewing on words. And he's purposefully written Frieza with a very sense of heightened language, which gives him that arrogant nobility that Frieza needs to have. So it's been a ball working on that. So
that's great. So is this version, I know with the original version that they did of Dragon Ball, there was a lot of censoring of certain things that you just couldn't do on American television.
Now here's the thing. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I know my brother touched on it with the 4 Kids issue.
Right.
When we did Trinity Blood, oh my gosh, anime fans got up in arms because, well, they cut all the blood out of Trinity Blood. When Trey shoots up the vampires, there's not any blood. You can't show that on television. You can't. Those cuts are made by networks, not by Funimation, not by studios. When you get the DVD of Trinity Blood, believe me, when Trey shoots up the vampires, all of the blood is there. Trust me. It's been very interesting working on Kai because we are having to do alt lines. We're having to do alternate lines because Frieza, I mean, gosh, how many times does Frieza talk about killing people? You can't say, I'll kill you on television. Not for a show that's going to be shown on a network that shows shows for kids. So we'll have to find a rewrite for that line that says something similar, but is not necessarily that line. And that's for any show that's going to air on television. We did something that we were pushing for TV one time, and the character had a ray gun. It was a ray gun. It shot lasers. We weren't allowed to call it a ray gun because it had the word gun. We had to call it a blaster. Blaster to me sounds just as dangerous as a ray gun, but didn't have the word gun. I have to do, it may be something like, well, Namekian, give me the Dragon Ball, or you'll die. And then we'll do that entire line again. Well, Namekian, give me the Dragon Ball, or you'll pay. You'll die, you'll pay. It means the same thing. You know what he's talking about, but it's not potentially offensive to parents, or
You're not gonna get censor fines.
You're not gonna have kids running around saying, "I'm gonna kill you," which is one of the things we do want to try to avoid, kids killing each other. So those are the real differences. When you get the DVD, the actual line as scripted is going to be there, but you don't want to get, believe me, you don't want to get in trouble with television censors. And Funimation is very good about trying to keep a line, and usually it's not us that rewrite the line. The writer will give you a Y7 line. So it's actually being written by the writers from a translation. So I'm very excited. The reaction has been very good. It's really scary stepping into a role that someone else has done for so long, and I'm like, oh, the fans are gonna hate me. But I've been having a great time. I love playing villains. I primarily play villains. The other show that Greg talked about, Tears to Tiara, is different. I'm playing a hero.
He's the Demon King, though, right?
No, I'm not playing the Demon King.
You're not playing the Demon King?
I'm playing Arthur.
Playing Arthur.
I'm playing Arthur. I'm not the Demon King. What are you talking about? And basically, we've done some fun stuff with the show. Spent the whole 26 episodes with an Irish accent because they're Gaels. Right. They're the Gael clan.
Right.
Okay, you've got the Gael clan who goes to Avalon. Wow, are we talking about Arthurian legends or what? So you're dealing with several different types of accents, and it was so much fun. And the cast, I don't know how many people I can talk about that are in it, but the cast for the show is phenomenal. And Matt Greenfield, who is one of my very favorite directors in the world to work with. I've got several others that I really love, but Matt directed me in Gantz, which was my first lead, and Matt and I are good friends, and I think the world of him, and so he was having a great time on this show, and it's always fun when you're having fun and he's having. The engineer was having a blast, so it was a really good time. I'm very excited. So I just found out last night at about 11:30 that I could actually talk about it. They cleared it with the DVD coordinator, who said, "Oh, I'm not sure. As long as Matt says it's okay, I'm fine with it." And so they finally got in touch with Matt, and I was like, yeah, Chris has got 4 conventions back to back. Yeah, let him start talking about the show. So
promotion. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen the anime before. I've heard of the game. I've seen clips. I've watched on YouTube's.
Very pretty.
Yeah, it looks really like it's gonna be great.
But I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Look forward to that
really,
one.
Really
Celtic mythology and so forth. Switching off the subject of video games.
Okay.
You did some stuff for Square Enix.
For Square Enix, yes.
What was that like?
That was a lot of fun. Working on a video game is very different from doing anime. It's all prelay, and your script is very different. You come in and they say, pick up the small character notebook. Turn to the 5th page, and you turn, and there's just a drawing of what they are currently thinking your character is going to look like. And they say, okay, now pick up event 2. And then you look down, and there are like 4 or 5 binders that are like this thick. These are the event books. And you pick it up, and you put it on the stand, and then it's like, okay, turn to page 500, and it's like, oh. And then that for like the next 6 pages is just your lines for that section of the game. And you do beep, 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 your line. And as long as it fits, as long as it works, okay, moving on. The director will give you a lot of input, but you see nothing. They had a camera on my face the whole time to animate to my mouth movements. Because it had a simultaneous US-Japanese release, it was animated for both sets of mouths, which was nice. It's a really very nice sync on that game, which just made me very happy.
I haven't played the game myself.
I have not finished the game. I have not finished the game. It's a fun game. The battle system, I believe they're using the Unreal Engine for the battles. By the end of that game, you are controlling up to an army of 25 fighters in teams of 5. And depending on what characters you put together depends the strength of that attack unit. Some you may put characters together. Wow, this group has a lot of magic. Ooh, this people have a lot of fighting power. It's a lot of fun. It's a Square Enix game, so there's a lot of grinding. There's a lot of, I gotta get to a higher level. I will say, I hate my character. I'm very pleased with the performance, but my character is the sidekick to the villain. He's kind of like the evil wizard that assists the ultimate villain. So my character shows up, and I go, oh, by the way, here's a level boss. Goodbye. And I leave. And it's like, I get to the point where when I come in, and it may be a short scene, I'm like, okay, it's just gonna be a scene. But all of a sudden, when I start monologuing, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be fighting for the next 4 days, and dying a lot. But I also play one of the level bosses. It was very funny. We went in, and you have not only your director, but you have a representative from Square Enix there who's also helping supervise what you do. And I'd spent the entire time talking like this because they wanted to waggle him very low and very slow and somewhat ominous sounding. And the director said, oh, I want you to play one of the level bosses. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, fun. I play about 5 or 6 minor things, but really this main villain is the core character. And he goes, okay, da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden I'm seeing the lady from Square Enix go, no. And he goes, Chris, this is supposed to be, this monster has a higher range. I said, okay. He goes, and I don't know if my voice is going to hold up. He says, can you show me, what you want to do? And I went, And she was like, oh, yeah. So it's actually a little higher and a little louder than that. I've been teaching the stage combat workshop today, so I've been yelling a lot, trying to keep people, moving and things going.
Stage combat, that's for the theater, right?
Well, I teach, I've for 5 years been teaching a workshop called Mock Combat for Cosplay. I'm a professional fight director. I've been working for over 20 years doing fights for theater and things like that. And I got tired of seeing people in the cosplay competitions get injured or have fights that were poorly staged. And there was a convention a number of years ago that was some pretty bad injury that could have easily been avoided. And I really started throwing a fit. And Jen Scott Frazier said, well, Chris, you teach stage combat to high schools and at some colleges and for theaters, and you're a professional fight director, and you're one of the few people working on this circuit who's trained to do anything about it. So you either put up or shut up. We're tired of hearing you complain about this. Either you do something about it or stop complaining. And true to my nature, because I'm a procrastinator, I said, okay, I'll think about it. And Jan did not take her suggestion lightly because she thought it was a good idea. And she called the very next convention I was doing and said, oh, you need to get Chris's his mock combat for cosplay panel. I didn't even come up with the name of my own panel. Jan Scott Fraser did.
Forced you into it.
And the con called me and said, oh, we want your mock combat for cosplay panel. And I went, okay. It's a slightly shortened version of if I were to go into a school and do a workshop. No, you will not come out of this workshop a fight director. You will come out knowing how to safely put something together for a cosplay event. And that's my goal. You know, there are a lot of people that have gone on to start, a couple of people have taken this workshop and have gotten so interested in it, they've taken stage combat in college and gone, I love this stuff. I'm like, told you. But it's a lot of fun. But there's a lot of me going, 1, 2, go, stop, just at the top of my lungs. So if I'm a little hoarse, oh yes, that's why I keep this, keep hydrated.
So stage combat, it's a little bit, for theater, it's a little bit different than for film, I have heard. Is that true?
Yeah, yes. Well, for one, we have to worry about sounds. I can throw a punch at you on film, and then a Foley artist will go in and make the nap for me. Whereas if I did something to you here, I would have to make the sound. We would have to figure out a way to have the sound made, have it happen close enough to us that it would seem like something had happened. Do me a favor. Can you switch hands? No,
sure.
No, you switch hands. I'm just gonna no, keep your hand loose, okay?
Hang on. Ah, that's cool.
All I'm doing. But and I was hoping you would be a screamer, go, oh my! And then everybody would think that I'd hurt you. But all I'm doing, is just like that. Yeah, as long as you sell it.
Right.
That's the kind of thing I teach.
You know, they go and they punch.
Yeah, we actually had a pro wrestler watching the workshop today, and he's like, this is the same stuff we do. I said, this is the same stuff we do on stage.
They just stamp their foot as hard as they can.
Yeah, that's called a foot nap. It's called a foot nap. You've got thigh nap, chest nap, contact nap, where you actually make contact with something. It's fun. I started fighting on stage at 13 for Oliver. I played Oliver, and Oliver gets it. And the thing is, when you're fighting on stage, whether you're being beaten up or beaten, you're still fighting on stage. There's still a lot of work on both people's part. And the theater I worked for had a fight director who came in, who worked on me getting slapped and me getting thrown to the floor and me getting picked up and slammed on tables and things like that. This is a very dark version of Oliver. And I became absolutely fascinated with the fact that someone can make it, just like the finger break, you can make it look like somebody's been hurt and everybody's safe. That fascinated me. And so any book I could find on it, I'd go to the library, is there anything on stage fighting? And they're like, it's called stage combat. Then as I got into high school, I found people that knew what they were doing, who I studied with. And then I was lucky enough to study under a man named Claude Coe. He's no longer with us, but he taught fencing for Marcel Marceau's Academy in France and taught their stage combat. He was part of the Society of European Fight Directors. He coached the South African team the 2 years they took the gold in fencing. Was an amazing man, and learned a lot from him. And it's, again, my career has been very varied. But yeah, stage combat is something I'm an absolute geek about. So yeah, we could do another 2 hours of me sitting here rambling about it.
Probably good, but
we probably don't have time. I've run out the tape.
Don't have time.
I told you before I sat down, I'm long-winded. So.
Oh, it's been very informative information.
Oh,
I think that it was a great interview.
Oh, thank you.
And
I had a
thank
good
you
time.
so much, Chris.
I'm not gonna break your finger.
No, I'm not breaking your finger. That's good, because I need that finger to operate my camera.
Cool. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
San Japan 2010, Chris Ayres.
Got it right again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.